Hey there, oh there. How's it going? It's Yapple Gaming, and we're back.
Hey yo, I'm yapping here. What the like, subscribe, let's get it.
Talking about some general stuff. This will be a pretty low-key video here, but about turning 30 and what that really means for anybody, turning 30 or becoming that age. I guess I just want to kind of explain how awesome it is, how freeing it is, and just to make sure that people, hopefully people who are younger watching this, they kind of get it. It took me a minute to figure it out. I'm just grateful that I figured it out on the early end of 30, on my 30s, as opposed to, closer to 40 when I am 32 now. And I just kind of want to share my experiences, or my thoughts on being 30, or being over 30 2 years into it here. First things first is you finally stop playing a character, or you're playing the character that you want to play at this point. At 32 years old, I still feel like I need to figure out who I am, or that's still a process that's developing. I'll say that much, but I feel like I have a bunch of different tools at my disposal to do so. I'm not stuck playing a singular role anymore, like I may have felt in my 20s, early 20s and teens and stuff. Trying to be this whatever society wants me to be. In my 20s and stuff, it was definitely going to college, being a part of the first 1.5 generation of people going to college in my family and finishing college in my family. Even though I finished with a associate's degree, I still walked across the stage, so we count that. But back to the initial point of being 30 and not really having to play a character anymore, it feels freeing because I can just kind of be or become what I am or who I am. So that's pretty freeing, and they don't really express to you how freeing that feels. It's a different situation where, when I was a teenager or younger and I wanted to try a new fit, I could try it, or I would jump into the subculture or the scene or whatever. Say I'm going into a thrift store, I'm looking to, get a battle vest, a jean jacket and stuff. At first, that worry that you had back in the day of like, oh, I'm a poser, I'm this, I'm that, it kind of dissipates the older you get because you kind of stop caring, you kind of stop giving a fuck about who's calling who a poser, because the ultimate truth of everything is that everybody is a poser. Period. Everybody's acting like they're something. Everybody's trying to be something, trying to reach some loose idea that they set for themselves, so they're posing. They're posturing for it. And once you hit 32, you kind of get away from the idea that you're the poser and you can't be a poser. The true idea that you're supposed to be a poser until you're not one anymore. It's very much fake it till you make it out here in real life. So don't forget that. Don't let everybody else let you, think about that too much longer than you need to. It just is a thing. So just do what you want to do. What you can do now, because you're over 30. And even if you're not, it doesn't hurt to try early. Get this out the way early. Number 2 is that, this is a pretty boring one, but hopefully it'll be pretty short. Stability is pretty exciting. It's I don't want to say exciting. Stability is pretty warranted. It's pretty welcome at this point, and that doesn't mean that you can't change things and things can't be dynamic as you need them to be. But knowing where things are going to go, or knowing where things are coming in, at least to a certain degree, and by knowing where things are coming in, I mean having a stable job, having some stuff you can count on, having some people you can count on because you've kind of means tested them, is worth more than what we talk about. I know, and maybe this is a prior generation thing, a lot of Gen Xers and older millennials have the, oh no, I'm stuck in my stable job at 35, I've done nothing with my life syndrome type of thing we'll see in movies and stuff. But it's pretty solid once you kind of have a basis to jump off of, to do different things. In my early 20s and when I was younger, it was kind of touch and go, and you just kind of do what the moment called for, or you kind of just do what was necessary in the moment. And a lot of that still happens today. I'm not saying that it's not the case at all, but it's the impact is felt a little bit less when things kind of switch up, because you've had time to accumulate things and have think about hurricane resistance or weather resistance. You've had time to place those sandbags to stop all your structures from falling down, so you can have time to reinforce or rebuild things, or even plan to rebuild things that may need to be lost in the first place. You have a little bit more of a base to work with, and that helps a lot. It's a lot more underrated than people like to talk about, in my opinion. you know, and this one's for all my traumatized shorties out there, you know, my traumatized homies out there who've grown up through some hard times and it has left them scarred in one way or another. One thing about getting past 30 is that, one, congrats. I'm pretty sure, or maybe you didn't think you'd be here. I know sometimes I didn't think I would be at this age, or at least, you know, do what I'm doing now, which is talking to you. How's it going? But, you know, congrats for being here. You made it past that point, so anything's possible now, right? But ultimately, your past stops becoming your identity. It becomes more of a tool in your arsenal of your lived life, you know? And that's pretty good when it comes to relating to people younger, older, or on your same level. You know, it's a solidifying thing in your identity and not the whole of your identity, if that makes sense. It's a part of you. It is not you, and has not been you for a long time. You know, you've lived a lot of life in between maybe one incident and the next, and in between those, you know, incidents, there's a lot of life that is lived that is worth, you know, being talked about, and you can carry those things with you through those in-between periods, you know, to engage with life in whatever way you need to, right? You know, and another way that you'll need to engage with life is just kind of recognizing your circle getting smaller, which I'm sure you've heard before. This isn't really new information, but from my experiences and, you know, my lived experiences of being 30 or over 30, it's true. It does happen. And sometimes it's for better or for worse. You know, I've lost a lot of friends that I really wish I hadn't. But things happen for a reason in so many ways, you know, and those friends are gone, but the memories haven't gone. And sometimes you become less compatible with people you've known for so long that it just ends up happening, you know, on its own. And that's fine, you know. Going back to the stability point, if you know who your friends are, you know who your community is, and you'll feel more comfortable with that certain small number as opposed to a vast array of, you know, people who may or may not come through when it's time to come through. One of the things that I guess has got me through or come to me at my age of 32 as well is that, like, you know, I'm starting to realize that, you know, I'm not late to things, but I'm also not rushing to things. You know, everything kind of comes at its own pace. You know, in my 20s and even in my early 30s now, which is something I'm kind of unlearning, it's always hard to feel like, you know, you're not missing out on things, or you're not, you know, way late to things where you should be, you know, way past at this point, you know, especially when you think of like the 32-year-old age you're at. When we were younger, you know, at least for me, coming up in the 90s and 2000s, it was way easier for me to imagine myself having things ready at 30 years old, 32 years old, having a car, having a house, and so on and so forth, and having all the traditional markers of adulthood that, you know, you would traditionally ascribe to somebody at that age. And it didn't really happen like that for me, but it didn't really happen like that for a lot more people than I'm pretty sure that, you know, we all counted on coming up in the 90s. It's kind of crazy how much, like, widespread disparity there is right now that none of us saw for or accounted for. But it's also crazy that, you know, just because all of this stuff is happening and stuff has happened, things aren't at the end, you know, things aren't over with. So it's just kind of like taking it easy, for real. Like, you know, as much as they say that you should stress in your 30s if you didn't do much in your 20s, that's not really going to do much for you. It's just going to make the inevitable time between you making it or failing harder on yourself. Because regardless of whether or not you make it or you don't, whatever that loose idea may be, if you're not really having fun with it, you're not really doing anything worth doing, in my opinion. If you're not relaxing or making sure you're following your path, at least to do things that get you fulfilled, no matter what age you are, it's not really worth it. So I think that, like, just taking it easy is one of the things that not only have I learned, but has solidified for me at 32 years old. You know, it's just a better thing to do more often than not, especially because you start to see time a bit differently compared to how you used to see it. You know, when I was 23, you know, time moved a lot slower. There was a lot more day in my day, if that makes sense. Thinking about potato chips, you know, I opened a bag at 20 or something. You know, there was a lot more chips in there, as opposed to now, if I'm opening a bag of chips, there's like more air than chips. That's kind of how it feels in my day. You know, there's never really enough time. There never will be enough time. But, you know, with that kind of being internalized now, as opposed to something sneaking up on me at 28, 29, being 32, it's something that, you know, I can use to my advantage as opposed to letting it use me, right? Like, time is time, and you don't have as much of it as you thought you would. Okay, for sure. So that means that, you know, the only thing you can do to make the most of your time is maybe prune the leaves a bit or trim the fat off some things or some actions you were doing before. You know, maybe you indulge in, you know, some of your vices a little bit less, or you indulge in them at the end of the day, just so you can ensure that things are done. You know, I know when I was younger, I used to get a lot more art done, a lot more editing stuff done for other endeavors I've tried to do before, with a little bit of a Jeezy, a little bit of a joint with me. I try not to do that anymore, just because I've noticed diminishing returns, let's call it that, on my productivity. You know, and it's not to say that I don't indulge in a little bit of the woo, you know, a little bit of the jazz cabbage, but it's like time and place. You know, I want to actually enjoy my time with my substances, you know, or enjoy my time, you know, in the green, I'll say, instead of like just doing it just for the sake of doing it, trying to make my activities fun. You know, I guess one other thing I learned in 30s is activities that you need to do probably aren't going to be fun. So, you know, getting faded to try to help them be fun is not the way to do it. It's going to make things worse by a long shot. So just get it over with. Just do it, you know. Kind of like taking medicine. Just take the shot, take the Robitussin. It's going to taste like shit. It's gonna be bad. It's probably gonna burn a little bit, but, you know, it's got to get done. So just do it, you know. And that's probably a good list of things of what I think, you know, people lie to about 30 years old. And even if some of these things were negative, I think that they ended up, you know, retooling themselves and not like really being negatives, being more so just unpleasant. But like, life's unpleasant. And if you can get through the unpleasant times, you can get to the pleasant times, you know. So if you're under 30, relax. You know, honestly, 30 years old is probably where I feel like life really has begun as opposed to ended, because like I'm in control of things. Even when you're in your 20s, people kind of tell you off like you're a teenager, like you're not in your 20s, and that's frustrating and stupid. But in your 30s, you know, the double-edged sword of grown-ass man, you know, is also, hey man, I'm a grown-ass man, and there's certain power that comes with saying that. Grown-ass woman, grown-ass person, whatever. You're grown. There's certain things that come with that nobody can really take away from you at that age. So, you know, if anything, if the aging is a problem for you, or the perceived loss of power with aging is a problem for you, think of it more of a power exchange. You're exchanging your youthful spryness for ultimately commanding authoritativeness, you know, for a certain level below you. You know, like if you're 30 years old, you talk to a 25-year-old, that's a kid. You shut your ass up. A 30-year-old's talking, grown-ass man's talking here. So, you know, you do have that, and I would implore us to all kind of relish in it. You know, if it's, you know, for good or bad. If it's bad, you'll probably get told by the universe it's bad sooner enough. So just, you know, do you know, and be confident in doing you. I guess is the ultimate message here. But much love, y'all. Be safe. And I think we're probably playing Yeast again. I really got to beat this boss. It's blowing me, and I got a lot of footage of it, so you'll be seeing more of it. I hope y'all like it, but definitely let me know in the comments what you guys want to play. Otherwise, I'm just fucking playing whatever I want. So I hope y'all like it. Much love. Peace. Catch you around.